Right now, as you watch this, $5 trillion is moving across the planet. It's a silent, invisible tide of capital, controlled by a legacy network from the 1970s known as SWIFT. But there is a glitch in the machine. While the world has moved to instant communication, global finance is still stuck in the loop of 3-day delays and exorbitant fees. Now, this inefficiency has created a valuation gap so massive that it defies conventional market logic. If the XRP ledger captures just 5% of that daily flow, a mere fraction of the status quo, the mathematical results isn't just a price increase, it is a systemic explosion. Now, we are talking about a move from $2 to $173 per token. That is an 80–100% leap, and the data suggests that we are closer to this reality than the market realizes. Current XRP daily trading volume stands at roughly $3 billion. Capturing 5% of SWIFT's daily volume would inject $250 billion of consistent flow into the ledger every 24 hours, representing a staggering 83-fold increase over the current activity. The skepticism surrounding XRP usually centers on its market cap, but that is a fundamental misunderstanding of how utility-driven assets work. In a speculative market, price is driven solely by hype. But in, say, a settlement market, price is driven by liquidity requirements. Now, to move $250 billion a day without causing massive slippage, the price of the underlying asset must rise to accommodate the volume. Now, you cannot move a mountain through a straw. Looking at these numbers, I cannot help but feel like we are witnessing the final days of the legacy monopoly. The bridge is being built, and the math doesn't lie. A 5% capture of SWIFT isn't just a growth metric. It is a total systemic revaluation of what it means to move value across borders in real time. When we apply a proportionate growth model to these figures, the target becomes clear. If XRP's price scales in line with this massive influx of institutional utility, then we are looking at a valuation of approximately $173. Now, this isn't a moonshot based on a social media trend. This is the price of admission for the new global financial operating system. The proportionate growth model illustrates that an 83-fold increase in volume requires a corresponding rise in liquidity depth. Now, this pushes the price from its current range towards the $173 mark, resulting in a total market cap expansion of trillions. The downfall of the old guard is no longer a conspiracy, it is a mathematical certainty. The question is no longer if the system will change, but who will be holding the keys when the liquidity finally shifts. The primary reason that this shift is inevitable lies in the architecture of the current global banking system. SWIFT is often mistaken for a payment processor, but in reality, it is just a messaging system, an aging infrastructure that has remained largely unchanged since the era of disco and telegrams. Now, when you send a cross-border payment today, your money doesn't actually move instantly. Instead, a series of messages are sent between intermediary banks, each of those taking a cut, each adding a layer of risk, and each extending the timeline. Now, we are living in a digital age where information moves at the speed of light, yet our capital is still traveling by horse and carriage. Now, this friction isn't just an inconvenience, it is a multi-billion-dollar drain on the global economy that the XRP ledger was specifically designed to plug. A single SWIFT transfer typically passes through 3 to 5 intermediary banks. Each hop introduces potential points of failure, additional fees, and settlement delays of up to 72 to 120 hours. Now, creating a massive liquidity trap for businesses worldwide. Looking at this process, I find it almost absurd that we've accepted this for so long. The 3 to 5 days settlement window is a ghost of the past, a relic maintained only because there was no viable alternative. But the alternative is now here, and every second that a payment sits in pending status is a second that the capital is unproductive. Now, this is the invisible tax of the traditional banking system, a hidden cost that erodes the value of every single transaction. Traditional global bank transfers carry average invisible tax of 7% when accounting for wire fees, exchange rate spreads, and the opportunity cost of delayed capital. Now, in contrast, XRP settlement costs a fraction of a penny. We are sending money at the speed of a 1970s postal service in a world of instant fiber optics. The friction in the current system is the single greatest barrier to global economic growth. This bottleneck is the catalyst for the downfall of the legacy guard. Banks are businesses, and businesses cannot ignore a technology that reduces their overheads by 99%. As soon as the first major dominoes fall, the migration from the SWIFT messaging loop to the XRP settlement layer won't be a choice. It will be a matter of survival. To understand why the legacy system is crumbling, we have to expose the fundamental illusion of modern banking. So when you send money via SWIFT, no money actually moves. SWIFT is essentially just a high-security chat room. If a messaging layer tells a bank A to debit an account and bank B then to credit another, well, the actual settlement, the movement of the value itself, it happens days later through a cumbersome chain of correspondent banks. Now, this separation of messaging and settlement is the structural flaw that the XRP ledger fixes by merging them into a single atomic action. Right? On the ledger, the message is the money. The comparison between layers reveals that SWIFT requires a separate settlement process via corresponding banks, adding layers of cost. The XRP ledger combines messaging and settlement into one step, completing the entire value transfer in 3 to 5 seconds. This architectural gap creates a massive opening for error. Because SWIFT relies on a chain of manual reconciliations and disconnected ledger systems, the friction is immense. In 2025, data showed that nearly 5% of traditional cross-border payments failed or required manual intervention due to messaging errors, data mismatches, or intermediary delays. Now, in a world of high-frequency commerce, a 5% failure rate is a catastrophic inefficiency. Now, I see this as a tipping point. Once institutions realize that they can eliminate this risk entirely, well, the migration becomes an operational mandate. Traditional SWIFT transfers, they face an error and manual intervention rate of approximately 5%. Conversely, the XRP ledger maintains a transactional failure rate of less than 0.001%, offering near perfect reliability for institutional-grade payments. SWIFT is a fax machine for banks. XRP is the vault itself moving through space. As we move away from a system of promises to pay towards a system of actual payments, well, the messaging trap has kept trillions of dollars in limbo for decades. But the math of the ledger is making those delays obsolete. The legacy network is a map of the world as it kind of used to be. XRP is a map of the world as it is now. To hit a target of $173, we have to look past simple price charts and examine the pipes of the global financial system. The primary driver of value for the XRP ledger isn't social media sentiment. It is the physical requirement for liquidity. Now, in a world of institutional settlement, if you want to move $250 billion in a single day, the underlying asset must have deep enough order books to absorb those trades without the price swinging 50% in either direction. Now, this is why utility-driven growth is so explosive. As more of Swift's volume migrates to the ledger, the price of XRP must rise to create the necessary liquidity depth. Now, you simply cannot settle $1 trillion annual flow with a $2 token without breaking the entire market. To support a daily settlement volume of $250 billion, just 5% of Swift, XRP requires a liquidity depth that current prices cannot provide. To maintain a healthy 5% slippage tolerance, the market cap would need to scale into the multi-trillion-dollar range. Now, I've watched this ecosystem for years, and I've never seen a supply-demand imbalance quite like this. While the demand for institutional liquidity is ramping up, the average supply of XRP on centralized exchanges has plummeted to an 8-year low, with only about 1.5 billion tokens left for active trading. Now, this is the definition of a supply shock. Now, as part of your own risk management in this environment, I always recommend a redundancy strategy. Don't keep all of your assets on a single platform. Using the exchange affiliate links that you'll find on my website, which there's a link for in the description below, you can find different exchanges that I personally use to help you distribute your holdings across multiple regulated venues, ensuring that you are not locked out of the market during a high volatility event. Utility doesn't care about market sentiment, it cares about the depth of the order book. It is important to remember that this is an emerging technology and a highly volatile asset class. Nothing in this video today should be taken as financial advice. These are just mathematical projections based on a specific scenario of institutional adoption. You should always conduct your own research and never invest more than you can afford to lose. Exchange-held XRP balances have now dropped by over 50% in recent months, reaching record lows of 1.5 billion tokens. This shrinking liquid inventory, combined with the rising institutional demand via ETFs, it creates a structural bottleneck that favors a massive upwards repricing. We are seeing a shift where XRP is being treated less like a trading chip and more like a global reserve bridge. When the liquid supply on exchanges vanishes just as the world's largest banks begin needing that supply for settlement, the resulting price action won't be a gradual climb. It will be a vertical repricing to meet the new reality of the Internet of Value. The vision for XRP capturing a significant portion of global trade isn't just a community theory. It is the stated goal of the leadership at Ripple. During the Apex 2025 Developer Summit, Brad Garninghouse doubled down on a vision that seemed impossible just a few years ago, capturing 14% of Swift's market share. Now, while our baseline scenario today focuses on just 5% capture to reach $173, Ripple's internal targets are nearly 3 times more ambitious than that. So if the ledger scales to handle 14% of global flows, then we aren't just looking at price increases. We are looking at the XRP ledger becoming the primary nervous system for the world's capital. A 14% capture of Swift's daily volume would equate to over $700 billion in daily flows. This scenario suggests a target valuation exceeding $400 per token to maintain the necessary liquidity for global settlement. Watching this evolution from the 2024 legal victories to the current 2026 adoption curves, the momentum is undeniable. We have moved from a phase of if this is legal to how fast can we integrate it. The timeline has now compressed. What we thought would take a decade is happening in months because the economic pressure on banks to modernize is now unbearable. Now, they aren't switching because they love the technology. They are switching because the old system is too expensive to maintain. The 2026 adoption curve shows a vertical shift following the 2024 clarity. Institutional pilot programs have transitioned into full-scale production environments, with annual volume goals now surpassing $20 trillion across the XRP ledger. I think less about the messaging and more about the liquidity. If you solve the liquidity problem, the world's value moves for free. This focus on liquidity over messaging is what separates XRP from every other project in the space. While others are trying to build apps, Ripple and the XRP ledger community are building the world's reserve bridge. Looking at this shift, I feel the market is still pricing XRP as if it is still a tech startup, when in reality it is becoming a global utility. The Apex prediction isn't just a roadmap either, it is a warning for those still standing on the wrong side of the digital divide. While most people focus on the speed of transactions, the real reason that banks are desperate for a change is the $10 trillion problem known as the Nostro and Vostro accounts. Under the current SWIFT system, for a bank in London to send money to a bank in Tokyo, it must keep pre-funded accounts full of Japanese yen in that country. This is dead money. Trillions of dollars sitting idle, doing nothing, just to act as a lubricant for this legacy system. Now, it is one of the greatest capital inefficiencies in human history. XRP's role as the on-demand liquidity tool isn't just about its speed. It is about liberating that $27 trillion so that it can finally be put to work in the global economy. Estimates show that there's over $10 trillion in global capital is currently locked in these pre-funded Nostro-Vostro accounts. This dead money represents a massive opportunity cost for financial institutions, tying up liquidity that could otherwise be used for lending or investments. When I look at these balance sheets, the scale of waste is staggering. Banks are essentially forced to keep huge piles of cash in every country where they do business, just in case someone wants to send a payment there. It's kind of like a railway company having to keep a separate train at every station. By using XRP as a bridge though, they can actually hold their value in one place and convert it to any currency on demand. This is the ODL advantage. It turns a massive liability into a streamlined asset. By adopting on-demand liquidity, banks can reduce their pre-funding requirements by up to 80%. This shift allows for just-in-time settlement, where XRP acts as the bridge currency, instantly converting value without the need for idle local accounts. Banks are sitting on trillions in dead capital just to make the current system breathe. XRP doesn't just move money, it sets it free. This transition is the ultimate catalyst for the downfall of the old guard. The competitive pressure is just simply too high. If one bank frees up $5 billion of idle capital by using the XRP ledger, every other bank in that corridor must also follow suit or be buried by the high efficiency of their rivals, right? Now, we are moving from a world of stagnant pools of money to a world of flowing global liquidity. The narrative surrounding XRP shifted fundamentally in early 2026 with the arrival of the spot XRP ETFs in late 2025. For years, the asset was treated as a speculative outsider, but the introduction of these institutional-grade investment vehicles on Wall Street changed the game. These ETFs acted as a Trojan horse, bringing the XRP ledger's utility directly into the heart of traditional finance. By providing a regulated gateway for pension funds, insurance companies, and family offices, the ETF market has created a massive, constant buy pressure that has decoupled from retail settlement. Right? We are no longer just looking at a coin. We are looking at a globally recognized financial commodity. In the first quarter of 2026, institutional inflows into XRP ETFs outpaced these Ethereum-based products by 20%. This surge reflects a growing institutional preference for assets with clear utility-driven demand rather than pure platform speculation. I find it fascinating to watch the very institutions that once dismissed crypto now racing to secure their share of the ledger's supply. The commodity reclassification in late 2025 was the final nail in the coffin for the SEC's long-standing shadow over the project. With the legal debates finally settled, the floodgates opened. Now, this isn't just about a price pump. It is about legitimacy. Now, if you are looking to build your own expertise in the changing landscape, then I do highly recommend joining our free Discord for real-time updates and checking out the 𝗗𝗶𝘀𝗰𝗱 as well, using those links in the description down below. I'll also drop a 50% off coupon code for any of our paid courses, for anyone who is looking to expand their knowledge and navigate this institutional transition. Since the reclassification of XRP as a non-security commodity, institutions' buy and hold addresses have actually increased by 300%. This shift indicates that Wall Street is moving from short-term trading to long-term strategic positioning within the XRP ledger ecosystem. The ETF isn't the product. It is the bridge for pension funds to enter the ledger and secure the liquidity that they need for the next decade of finance. The presence of these ETFs means that the scarcity that we discussed earlier is becoming even more acute. Wall Street isn't just buying for the sake of it. They are front-running the utility. They know that when the 5% shift from SWIFT happens, the underlying asset will become one of the most valuable pieces of digital real estate on the planet. As we navigate through 2026, the global financial system has finally reached a point of no return. A migration to ISO 20022 is no longer a future goal. It is a mandatory reality for every major bank on Earth. Now, this isn't just a technical update to a messaging format. It is a complete overhaul of the global financial language. For decades, banks used a fragmented or broken dialect that led to many errors and delays. Now, they are moving to a unified data-rich standard that allows for unprecedented levels of automation. And here is the key. The XRP ledger was one of the very first distributed ledger technologies to natively align with this new world order. While other networks are scrambling to build translation layers, XRP has been speaking this language from the very start. The ISO 20022 compliance map shows that as of late 2025, the SWIFT coexistence period has ended. In 2026, the XRP ledger stands as a primary first mover, with full technical alignment allowing it to settle transactions directly with any bank using the new global standard. The power of ISO 20022 lies in its data richness. In the old system, a bank transfer would be like a postcard with barely enough room for a name and an amount. The new standard, though, is like a detailed ledger entry that includes the purpose of the payment, the tax data, and the full history of the transaction. This level of data is exactly what regulators and compliance officers have been demanding for years. Right? It reduces false positives in anti-money laundering checks by nearly 30%, meaning payments move faster because they don't get flagged by mistake. And when I see this alignment, it is clear that the XRP ledger isn't just a competitor to SWIFT. It is the ideal settlement engine for the very standard SWIFT is trying to implement. A comparison of data fields shows the legacy SWIFT messages were limited to basic, unstructured text, leading to a 5% failure rate. The ISO 20022 compliant XRP ledger utilizes structured XML data, supporting thousands of characters per message and reduces errors by near zero, or at least to near zero. The world is finally speaking the language of the XRP ledger was born with. The translation to ISO 20022 is the moment that the legacy system admitted that the future belongs to structured, real-time data. By the end of 2026, banks that haven't fully modernized their address structures and messaging will face significant fines and rejections. Now, this creates a forced adoption environment. If a bank wants to remain part of the global economy, it must use the ISO standard. And if it wants to use that standard with maximum efficiency and minimum cost, well, the path leads directly to the XRP ledger. Now, we are witnessing the standardization or the synchronization of global finance here, and XRP is at the heartbeat of that new machine. As we stand on the principle of this 80 to 100% shift, we have to talk about the reality of the environment that we are operating in. The transition from a legacy monopoly to a digital utility is never going to be a smooth line. It is going to be a period of extreme volatility and structural stress. Now, this brings us to what I would call the redundancy strategy. And in an era where a single protocol could suddenly handle 5% of the world's daily capital, the platforms that we use to access that protocol becomes targets. Now, we've seen it before. During high volume events, exchanges can freeze, liquidity can dry up on specific venues, and access can be restricted. So looking at the stakes here, I cannot emphasize enough that your greatest risk in 2026, it isn't necessarily the asset itself. It is the platform that you choose to hold it on. A multi-exchange distribution model shows that high net worth holders now split their assets across at least 3 regulated venues. This strategy, it ensures that if one exchange faces a liquidity crunch or a technical outage, the investor retains 66% of their market access. But before we go any further, it is critical to address the mandatory reality of this market. All projections regarding XRP reaching $173 are based on a specific scenario of institutional adoption and utility flow. These are mathematical models and not guarantees. The crypto market remains a high-risk utility play, and the regulatory environment, while clearer in 2026, can still shift. The only invest capital that you are prepared to lose, and never put your financial stability at risk for a speculative outcome. Now, my personal view is that the utility is undeniable, but the path to that utility will be volatile. Now, this is why using exchange affiliate links that are on my website, which that website link is in the description below, isn't just about supporting the channel here. It is about setting up the redundancy that you need to manage that volatility effectively. Volatility comparison data, it shows that while XRP remains more volatile than the US dollar or the euro, its stability in cross-border settlements has improved by 40% since 2024's clarity. This maturing profile is what allows it to compete with G7 currencies in the settlement layer. In a revolution, the greatest risk is not the asset, but the platform you hold it on. Redundancy is the only true insurance policy in a shifting financial world. We are moving into a phase where XRP will be treated with the same seriousness as a G7 currency. But until the infrastructure is fully mature, you must be your own central bank. By distributing your holdings and staying informed through communities like our free Discord, you move from being a victim of the transition to a beneficiary of it. The downfall of the old system is happening, and the bridge is ready, so make sure that you have more than one way to cross it. We are no longer speculating on a distant future. We are witnessing the re-architecting of human value in real time. The journey from $2 token to a $173 global liquidity isn't just about the price appreciation. It is about the total displacement of the inefficiency and inefficient monopoly. Now, as the XRP ledger absorbs that critical 5% of Swift's daily volume, the ripple effects, moves much farther beyond bank balance sheets. It reaches the small businesses in Lagos, no longer waits a week for supplies, and the family in Melania that keeps 10% more of their remittances. Right? This is the internet of value finally going live, and the downfall of the legacy guard is the price of that progress. Real-world data from late 2025 indicates that XRP-based remittance corridors have already reduced total transactional costs by 60% for the developing world. By 2026, these savings are projected to return over $20 billion annually to global consumers. The $173 target is a mathematical milestone, but the 2030 roadmap suggests even deeper integration. Looking at the data, I am convinced that as we kind of move past the bridge currency phase and into the era of where the XRP ledger acts as the global reserve bridge, this is a silent takeover, happening one transaction at a time beneath the surface of the traditional headlines. Now, all while the world was distracted by the noise of the old system's collapse, the new system was built quietly, block by block. The 2030 roadmap visualizes the transition from a cross-border settlement tool to a global reserve bridge. Projections suggest that by the end of the decade, the XRP ledger could handle over 20% of all international value transfers, cementing its role as the backbone of digital finance. We aren't just watching a price pump, we are watching the re-architecting of human value through the most efficient liquid bridge ever created. The math is clear, the utility is proven, the bridge is open. We are living through the most significant shift in the history of money, where the friction of the past is finally being erased by the logic of the future. The question for you isn't whether the system will change. The change has already happened. The only question left is where you stand when the 5% shift becomes a total transformation. For now, you can do me a favor by hitting that like button, subscribing to the channel, and watching the video that is queued up on the screen. I will catch you all in the next one.